Morning everybody, Car and Biker here, in the garage, the back cave. Very cold back cave, it's about 5 degrees in here, and I've had my heater on a little bit and it's just above zero outside, so because I'm going to do the coolant today and that's going to involve being outside so I don't make a mess in here, I'm kind of gearing up to it, and I thought before I get myself properly cold, I'm going to try something. I'm going to try something with my torque wrenches. Let me show you. Here's a couple of my torque wrenches. I've actually got another one, but it's a much smaller one for things that aren't very tight, and I don't use it that often. It's kind of hand tightness level. But these are the two kind of main torque wrenches I've got. My favourite for ease of use is this one, which is standard clicker type. I don't know if they've got a proper name, but to me it's the clicker type torque wrench. So with these you set the desired torque on the little doobry at the end, and then you put your torque wrench on your nut or your bolt and you torque away, and when it reaches the desired torque, the tension goes out, you get a click, and you know you've reached, hopefully, the correct torque. You've not over tightened anything and done any damage, and you've not under tightened something that's later going to fall off on a motorway, which would be, well, it'd spoil your day a bit, wouldn't it? And I've also got this one. This is a beam type torque wrench. This is a little bit different. What you've got here at one end, you've got where you connect it to a socket or whatever you're using for tightening. At the other end you have a gauge, and you can see that needle in front of the gauge is a separate bar. So what happens is, as you tighten with this, the main bar bends as the torque is applied, and as it bends, the needle doesn't, and the needle will then move across the gauge. No clicking, no audible sounds, nothing spectacular on that one. So when you're using it, you actually have to look at the gauge. You have to use the tool properly, look at the gauge, and when you get to the right level of tightness, you stop. I say use it properly. It's really important that these are used properly. This one's not got a pivoting handle. Some of them have got a handle that pivots. This one doesn't need it, but the pivoting handle allows you to get better accuracy, and also very important because of parallax, that when you're looking at that gauge, you're not looking at it from that angle, that you're looking at it from that angle. So a little bit trickier to use than the clicker type. But it has a benefit, and the benefit is that there's no real moving parts as such. Basically it's just the tension on that bar making it bend that makes the needle point to the right place. It can get out of calibration. If you lean on it, then you could bend the needle, in which case you have to bend it back again. So it's quite easy to recalibrate. And the other thing that can happen, if you look down here, that needle is actually kind of floating in the air between those two pieces of metal. So between the gauge and this piece of metal here. If this was to bend and touch one of those, then obviously that can add drag, and that would be bad. So again, you can calibrate it by bending it back the other way. And that's the joy of that one. You know whether it's calibrated or not, because you can just look and it should be pointing at zero and not dragging anywhere. It's also pretty accurate. They say that they are accurate to 2% of the gauge's range at any point. So that's 150 foot-pounds maximum. Well, 2% of 150 foot-pounds would be 3 foot-pounds. 3 foot-pounds is roughly 4 newton meters. So if you're tightening things in the kind of 40, 50 and above range, you know that it's going to be probably accurate enough. The other one, the clicker, much easier to use. You don't need to be looking at anything. You can use it in areas where you couldn't see the gauge on the other one. Don't need to see it because when it gets to the right torque, it clicks. Downside is it's full of complicated bits. It's got a little spring in there and some moving parts, and things can get out of alignment. If you drop them particularly, things can get damaged. Every year or two probably you should get these things calibrated. But that's really expensive. In some cases, with a tool like this, it isn't a hugely expensive one, the little Clark Pro thing. It can cost as much or more than the tool to get the damn thing calibrated. So I have a little thing I'm going to try today which I've seen done, and it's not for calibrating the thing as such, but it's just to give me peace of mind that that thing is working roughly where I want it to be. So I've got a few other bits to play with. I've got my 2 torque wrenches, you've seen that already. I've got my laminated sheet of torque wrench settings conversions. I've also got a socket, and I've got a hex key that happen to go together. You can probably see where I'm going with this. And I've got a conversion bit because my hex keys are 3/8 and my 2 torque wrenches and these 2 sockets are both 1/2 inch. And I've got a rag to keep everything nice, and I've got my little desk mounted vise. Can you see where I'm going with this? Are you screaming at me yet? So using all these bits, I'm going to start by wrapping the torque wrench in a bit of cloth so I don't do any damage, hopefully. I'm going to pop it in the vise, not tightly, just to hold it, stop it being hard to hold 2 torque wrenches at the same time. Put the bits on. So I now have a way of connecting 2 torque wrenches together. How's that? And now the bottom torque wrench, the clicker, is set at 28, so I'm just going to turn the top torque wrench, the beam, until this clicks, and I'm going to see what the meter says, what the gauge says as I do so. I'll stand here so I can see the gauge nicely. So we're expecting this to click at about 20. There's about, oh, there you go. So try that again. So 5, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18 maybe. So I would say that clicked at about 19. That's quite interesting. It seems to click at about 26 Newton meters on the foot-pound scale once you've done the conversion, and I've got it set at 28, so it's out by 2 in theory. This is not a calibration. Yeah, I can't stress it enough, and I'm sure somebody will grumble in the comments, but it's not a calibration. It's just give me the feeling that it's in the kind of right range. The beam type we know can be off by 4 Newton meters. The other one can also be off by a similar amount. So for them to come out at 2 means it could be, you know, out by a good 3, 4, 5 Newton meters. But I think it's reasonable to think that at 28 at least, it's not far off. So let's turn it up a little bit. Let's go up to 100 Newton meters and see what it does at that. We've got 98, 99, 100. And 100 Newton meters is 73.76 foot-pounds. 74-ish. Okay, so 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, about 73. And the torque wrench wants to move because 100 Newton meters, pretty blooming tight. Try again. Give it a couple of tries. 50, 60, 70, yeah, about 73. So about 73 foot-pounds. Now 73 foot-pounds, according to my magic map, 73 foot-pounds, if that will focus, is 98.97, about 99. Now again, it's not calibration. You know, you've got my eyes involved, you've got struggling against the vice involved and all that kind of thing, and I might be slightly off on the 100 on the clicker wrench, but to be fair, if I've got it set to 100 and it's clicking at roughly 99, considering when you use these things you can still always over tighten or under tighten a little bit depending on how quickly you attack your bolt with your torque wrench. That's a bit of peace of mind, I think. So I think it was quite worth a try that, and maybe I've now got peace of mind that I shouldn't have. But hey, that's life, isn't it? So thanks for watching everyone, ride safe, and I'll talk to you all again soon.